Hello and welcome to Author Nation. I am your host, Melody Ann. Author Nation takes you from idea to successfully published author and helps you get through it without getting overwhelmed or making those common and costly mistakes. If you're starting out right now, grab our planning checklist for nonfiction authors. The link is scrolling past you right now. It is also in the description. Today, we are talking about destroying what's holding you back so you can live the life you want. I mean, those are some words, right? Destroying what is holding you back. So our guest, Katherine Wintsch, is the founder and CEO of the Mom Complex, where she helps some of the largest companies in the world, such as Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, Pinterest, and Chobani, develop better products and services for mothers. She is also the author of the popular book, Slay Like a Mother, which Parade magazine recently named one of the top 10 life-changing self-help books of the year. Katherine sought after research on women and mothers has been featured by the Today Show, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Working Mothers magazine. But don't let all the accolades fool you. She's been through years of therapy, decades of self-doubt, and more than her fair share of tequila. Thankfully, she tamed her dragon of self-doubt, and now she's helping other women do the same. Please welcome Katherine Wintsch. Hello, Katherine. How are you today?
I'm great, Melody. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm actually really, really excited about this. I am also a mom, so this is right up my alley. So what is the Mom Complex? Let's start there.
The Mom Complex is a consulting company, and we work with companies such as the ones that you mentioned, Johnson & Johnson, Walmart, and we help them come up with better products and services for mothers. And so, a yogurt company, for example, might come to us and say, we want to develop a new line of yogurts for kids. And so we do research and interviews with moms to figure out, how much sugar do you want it to have in it? Do you want it to be in a tub? Do you want it to be in a tube? Do you want it to have sprinkles? Do you want it to be a dessert? Do you want it to be healthy? What do you want the name of it to be? Do you want there to be characters on it? And so it's really around product and service development, but it puts mothers at the heart of the conversation and really asks them, what do you need and what do you want?
Yeah. Nice. So when I think of the Mom Complex as well, I also think it's almost a syndrome that mothers can have, right? So, if moms have, moms have a complex, right? We have all these very complex emotions of guilt and love and fear and ambition. And, so can you talk a little bit about the complexity of being a mother before we talk about slaying like a mom?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love the name of my company, the Mom Complex, because it also means that mothers, as you pointed out, carry this complex. And, give you an example. We do a lot of research around women and mothers and food and feeding their families and their children. And our research shows that the average mother makes 250 food decisions a day. And sometimes that seems hard to believe, but that's everything from, should I put creamer in my coffee? Should I have that second brownie? Should I pack my kids' lunch with this or that? And so it's the questioning, it's the second guessing that goes on, all day long. And what we help companies understand is that it's not easy to be a mother. And we are filled with guilt and filled with doubt, especially when it comes to feeding our families. And I think a lot of companies, unfortunately, don't understand that. They think that it's still the 1950s and we love baking and cooking and we don't have that much on our plates. And it's really challenging to manage everything, whether you're working inside or out of the home, doesn't matter. And so we really, speak the truth, and we're able to say how complex it is and how hard it is. And I think when companies really, really understand that, then they can have empathy for mothers, and then they can just be more helpful.
Yeah. So if I'm making 250 decisions a day just about food, what about what my kids are wearing, what I'm wearing, how the lunch kit I take to school is going to affect my child's social life,
Yeah.
how other parents are going to view this. So I remember once I was in a real rush And I just grabbed this brown bag and I threw my kid's lunch in it and I sent her off to school. When she got home, I realized I'd sent her to lunch in a liquor store bag. And her lunch was in a bag. I'd bought a bottle of wine and I thought, oh my gosh, right?
I love it.
But this is mom's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's mom's life, right?
Yeah.
And then later you're like, oh my gosh, what did the teacher think? Right? What did the lunch lady think? What did and then we worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, we're then making thousands of decisions in a single day. And that's, we talk about the cognitive load. It's a weight that sits on top of us of, like I said earlier, the decisions we're making, the decisions that we're second guessing, the decisions we never make because we're too overwhelmed. And it's much harder these days too. So your point, you're seeing what people are putting on Pinterest. You're seeing what they're doing on Instagram. You're seeing everybody's highlight reels of, there's other mothers at their best. And then we compare that to ourselves at our worst, which just makes it, that much harder to, get through the day and not feel like a failure.
Exactly. So how did you go from mom complex to slaying like a mother?
Well, probably 3 or 4 years into running the Mom Complex, I did a global study with over 10,000 mothers around the world. And I wanted to uncover the one emotion that all moms have in common. So forget the stay at home versus, working, bottle feeding versus breastfeeding. Like, what's the tie that binds? And my research revealed that the number one emotion that all moms have in common is self-doubt. So believing that we're not good enough, thin enough, mom enough, tough enough, all the things. And it really struck me because I had lived with a tremendous amount of self-doubt for most of my life, and I thought I was alone. But hearing this research from women in China and Brazil and the UK was very freeing to me because I realized that everyone was filled with a lot of doubt. And so that sparked a 2-year self-help journey with lots of therapy and Oprah episodes and nonfiction self-help books. And so I learned to heal myself. I learned to love myself from the inside out for the first time in my life. And I felt really called to write this book to help other women do the same.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I love that. And I'm as you're talking, I'm thinking, what is the second emotion? I think for me, it was guilt.
Yeah.
I also have so much guilt that I was never, because of the self-doubt, because I was never good enough, I should feel guilty about it. Right. Yeah. And so I think those two go hand in hand. So, as you've said, and something you said on your website was that, the life of a mother has changed drastically, more so in the past 10 years than 50 years. And so I want to actually update that. Like, what about the last 2 years?
Well, certainly everything went on steroids, I think, in the last 2 years in terms of to your point, the guilt and the doubt and also the fear and the isolation. And I've never seen the levels of self-doubt so high in women and mothers than in the past 2 years, and second guessing everything that they were doing, also fearing for the life and safety, of the people mothers love the most, their family. And, but also the isolation, of being, schooling your children at home while you're trying to work or while you're trying to run errands and not die while doing so. I think that it's going to take a long time for women and mothers in particular to recover from the fear and anxiety. I think the one silver lining in the past 2 years, despite the horrific, devastation and isolation, is that mothers were forced to step away from doing everything. And, we couldn't run all over town all the time. We couldn't have our kids in 12 different sports. We couldn't go to the grocery store every single day. And for so many women and mothers, we learned that, like, maybe we were overdoing it. Maybe we don't have to be as involved in 150 activities. And also, maybe my family can help out at home since we're all at home and I don't have to do everything.
Yeah, good point. The other thing, and tell me if this is off base because you'll know better than I am, but the other thing I think I saw as a positive, because I know there were lots of really negatives, moms working until 2, 3, 4 a.m. at the beginning of the pandemic. It was awful. But the other thing I have seen talking to moms is that they have started integrating their children into their work lives. It's like, look,
Yep.
it's a pandemic. I'm working at home. My 2-year-old is running around in the back. I don't know what am I supposed to do about that? And at first I think there was a lot of guilt. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired. But I think there were some C-suite executives who stood up and said, no, it's okay.
Yep.
This is how it is. And I think that will I'm hoping and I'm thinking that may last, that
Yeah.
mothers might be given this permission to be mothers, not just employees or executives or. Is that right? Do you think that's going to
Yeah,
happen?
I think that, pre-pandemic, if a young child showed up on a video conference call, like I think somebody's job would have been on the line for sure. But I think there's a lot more grace. I think we're giving more grace, to mothers. And I think mothers are giving themselves a little bit less of a guilt trip, and they're able to say, I'm able to take this call right now, but I have a 3-year-old that's right here. And so it could, explode at any minute. And so I think we're seeing too that I think a lot of employers are saying as long as the employee gets the job done and they get it done well, that maybe there can be more breaks in the day, and that's okay. And I also think that because dads were home too in heterosexual relationships or other partners, that they had to take over some of that, and sometimes mom had to say, you know what, I have this call, so you have to take the 3-year-old during this, where maybe they both wouldn't have been in the house at the same time. And so I hope that that continues too, of just making sure that both parents are being parents.
Yes. Both are able to pursue their dreams and take responsibility to parent. I think that's wonderful. So how do you serve moms and how do you serve corporate? Because you serve both. And so I'm curious how you serve each and how you balance that.
Yeah, I love that you asked that, because they are two very different worlds and not everybody really realizes that. So, the Mom Complex is a B2B business. So, our clients are Fortune 500 companies. And so that requires a lot of, speaking engagements, showing our expertise about how to market to moms or how to, develop products with moms. And we're dealing with, our clients are marketing executives or R&D, insights and research leaders. And so that's a very, obviously, very professional world, very business oriented, very goal oriented. Everything we do is on a project basis. And so that's one world. And the way that we think about it is like we're serving moms in that sense, because we're working with retailers and working with product manufacturers to make the lives of mothers easier. It's just that the companies are the middleman in the sense that they are going to change something that they're doing to make the lives of mothers easier. So I think about that world as solving the external pain points of mothers, shopping, eating.
Love
But
it.
Slay Like a Mother is not B2B, it's B2C, so business to consumer. And that work is about solving the internal pain points of mothers. So the way that they feel about themselves, they think about themselves, the way they present themselves to the world, the way they stand up for themselves, draw boundaries. So Slay Like a Mother is kind of on the invisible side of motherhood, the internal side of motherhood, where the Mom Complex is more external.
Yeah, love it. So I have a question. Since you work in the realm, I'd like to know if product development is getting any better for women. A while ago, I saw this great skit, these 4 women sitting around pretending to be marketing execs. They were doing a new shampoo and they're like, okay, it has to be slender. It has to be pink. It has to have sparkles and it has to have butterflies. And they were really just, taking the Mickey, as we say. Are things getting better in product development for women?
Well, what you're describing is kind of pink washing, where they're taking products that are exactly the same products and kind of quote unquote making them for women. I don't unfortunately think that's getting any better. I still see a lot of that. So I just finished an amazing nonfiction book called Writings on the Wall, and it's by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And he gave all these examples of pink washing, the pink razors that cost, 30% more than a black razor. So I was like, is that still happening? And so what I did is I looked up on Amazon. I was looking for an electric toothbrush. So I looked up Sonicare. And lo and behold, the pink version of the Sonicare toothbrush was like $8 more than the white one, the black one, and the blue one. And it was infuriating. Like, it just made my blood boil. And Kareem's point in his amazing book was that we pay women less to do the same job as men in the United States of America, and then we charge them more money for the same products. And the other example he used, which I never thought about, was the dry cleaners. And he said, if you take a white woman's quote unquote blouse to the cleaners, it's 3 times the price as a men's white work shirt, which is like, what's the difference? They're both white long sleeve shirts. So to answer your question, I think that is still happening. But I do think with companies like the Mom Complex and others that exist, that we are getting more empathetic for new products to be developed, not just these, marketing campaigns for the same product.
Yeah, nice. Yes, that pink washing, I find it very, very frustrating. And so pay us 30% less, charge us 30% more. Something wrong with that math, right? Thank you. So let's talk about the book, Slay Like a Mother. Why did you call it Slay Like a Mother? And part of my question is, and part of my thinking is, you talk about slay and destroy, and these are often considered like masculine words, right? War words. And so why did you choose Slay Like a Mother?
I chose Slay Like a Mother because I wanted a title of this book to be something that women would be really proud to carry around. So in my own journey of like conquering my self-doubt, sometimes when I talked about it, it felt a little bit like a pity party, like I didn't believe in myself. I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't have any boundaries. I let people walk all over me. Woe is me. And then I learned to love myself. And it all felt a little soft and squishy, if I'm being honest. But when I really stepped back and thought about it, I thought, no, this is heroic. Like what I did to learn to love myself when before that I did not possess any love inside of myself. I only was able to get it from the external outside world, was brave. And it was like a warrior. And I slayed something. And so I do like that it's a little masculine. It's very strong. It's courageous. And when women see the title of this book, they are immediately like, oh, I want to be a slayer, and they're proud of it instead of embarrassed by this journey that so many of us need to go on.
So maybe slay is not such a masculine word after all.
Let's take it for ourselves.
Yeah, it just, I wanted to think about that, because when you're naming a book, it's really, really important to think about what's going to resonate. And when you're using a word that society considers masculine, and yet it's for women, and women are really resonating with it, it's like, what does that say? I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, and to that point too. So I when I was writing the book, the metaphor throughout the book is slaying this dragon of self-doubt, as you've mentioned. So I knew that slay was going to be in the title, but it took like, I don't know, 8 months to come up with the title, even though the book was well on its way of being written. And even some of the titles with slay were too soft for me. So one of the ideas was, slay your day. Another one was like ready, set, slay. And they just sounded kind of wimpy and just kind of soft, even with the word slay, which you'd think that would kind of carry more weight. And it wasn't until we came up with Slay Like a Mother that it was like, oh, yes, that is the title.
Awesome. So your book is divided into 4 parts. Can you just briefly give us an outlay of the 4 parts of the book and what we might find in each?
Sure. So part 1 is about understanding if you have a dragon of self-doubt, and if so, which 90% of women do, where did it come from? And what is this dragon? And how does it show up in your life? So it's very kind of self-reflective in the first part of it. The second part of the book is the crux of the book, and it's the 7 ways that you're feeding your dragon and how to stop. So it's very instructional, kind of step by step, of these 7 ways to get a handle on this beast inside of you. And then the third part is what life is like on the other side. So now that you're not battling the chaos inside of you, how can you better deal with the chaos inside of you? And then the final part is just the ripple effect and how you can pay this forward. So the final chapter in Slay Like a Mother is called Raising Dragon Slayers. And it's how do we teach our children to slay their own dragon of self-doubt so they don't have to get to be in their 30s or 40s before they figure it out.
Yeah, especially our daughters. I was reading that it's at about age 8 that about 30% of young girls go from confident to low self-esteem. It starts at 8, and it's about at 8 it's about 30%. I was reading a study, and it's like, wow, that young. So how do you raise it reminds me of The Paper Bag Princess. I don't know if you know that book.
Mm-mm.
But no, Robert Munch. I'll have to send you a copy of it. It's about a princess in a paper bag, and the prince is like, "What are you?" And she goes and slays the dragon anyway. You'd love it. I'll have to send you a copy. So I know the ideal reader is women, but if you really like peg that down, like for example, age 8, women are losing, girls are losing their self-esteem, their confidence. Where is a woman when she picks up your book? Like, who is that ideal reader?
I think it's broader than I originally thought. So when I was writing the book, I would tell you that the ideal reader was a mother with, children at home, whether they're 8 or 18 or 8 months, that didn't necessarily matter. And I knew that going into it, but I do a lot of speaking engagements, and there's a lot of women that come to my speeches that are not mothers, and they're young women, and it really, really touches them. And I thought, I didn't really ever think about that, but my self-doubt started when I was 15. And I mean, it definitely started when I was 8, what you're talking about, but it kind of fell off a cliff when I was 15 years old. And I tell that story in the book of being a teenager and losing all my self-confidence and self-worth. And so that's been a really nice, kind of finding or revelation of this, of women that are not mothers, maybe don't even want to be mothers, but that have self-doubt. And so I think it's been great to see that anyone who struggles with self-doubt, who needs to believe in themselves more, can get a lot out of this book. And again, I'm not only a researcher of women and mothers, but I've been through this. And so if I can do it, other people can do it too.
Yeah. So what's the transformation? People read your book, they finish the book. What is that transformation for them?
They will feel a lot freer and lighter, and they will worry a whole lot less about what other people think about them, and they will live their life from an internal perspective. What do I need? What do I want? I don't mean in a selfish way, but less so, what does so and so want me to do? What do my parents want me to do? What does my boss want me to do? It's like we now think from the inside out instead of the outside in. So people will feel lighter and freer and more whole.
Nice. Why as women do we need to qualify that? Not in a selfish way. Why as women do we need to use that qualifier all the time?
Well, I think society has trained us to believe that self-care is selfish,
Yeah.
that taking time for ourselves is selfish. And there's this narrative in this country and many others that mothers have to be martyrs and we have to sacrifice ourselves. But I think, with younger moms, with millennial moms, coming through, they're just calling BS on that, and they're not apologizing for it, and they're taking the time for themselves. But I think up until this, generation, I think, and I don't think it was intentional, but I think that we have been trained to believe that we have to be these sacrificial lambs, and also we're trained to believe that we're supposed to do everything at home, that the mother is supposed to cook. And I happen to work outside the home. I happen to be married to an amazing man. He happens to work outside the home. We have 2 teenagers, and I have rejected that narrative from day one. I have said, give me one reason other than history that says I should be the one to make and buy all the food. Why me? Why not the children? Like, why not the husband?
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for answering that, because I see it all the time. And I understand why you use the qualifier, because if you don't, women will have this immediate reaction. That's, they'll reject it. And so we have to qualify it right now. But I'm looking forward to the day when we're not qualifying that. I'm really looking forward to that day. All right. So we've talked about the transformation of the reader. How has the book transformed you, your life, and your business?
I wouldn't say it's transformed my business not in a bad way. It's just that, to your point earlier, it's two very different worlds. And so but it's transformed my life in terms of I get to help women all around the world learn to love themselves. So I just returned from Nigeria in Africa. I've been to India. I've been all over the world. And unfortunately, this problem exists in every country I've been to. I keep waiting to show up to one, and the women say, oh, we don't have that problem here. But um, I think it's my calling. I think it's what I was meant to do, what I put on this earth to do. And it is the most deeply fulfilling. And my career was always very important to me, but it was important to me in terms of titles and trophies and accolades. And now this is a huge part of my career, and I'm just healing women's souls. And it's just a great job to have.
That's beautiful. No, you found that, you have purpose and meaning, but you found an even deeper purpose and meaning.
Yes.
Which is,
yes.
That's beautiful. Where can we get your book?
My book can be bought in most bookstores. Barnes and Noble, people still go to bookstores, but definitely on Amazon and a couple other retailers on slaylikeamother.com. But Amazon is usually the easiest. And then it's also available on Audible, and I am the narrator. So if you like to listen to books, then I can, read you your bedtime stories if you would like.
Oh, that's amazing. You narrated your own book.
I did.
And I'm very curious, how did that decision come around?
Well, it came the deal for the deal with Audible came through my literary agent, who also helped me get the traditional publishing deal. But so he came over and said, Audible would like to release the book. And I said, great. And I said, I'm a first-time author. I said, I don't know how this works, but I would like to be the one to read it. I don't know if I'm even allowed to. I don't know how that decision's made. And so then the recording studio was like, well, do you have any audio examples or voiceover examples? And I said, no, because I'm not a voiceover artist, but I'm the author and I wrote this book. And I think it would be more meaningful to come from me. And then I never heard anything back for 3 weeks. And then I just got a booking for the studio. And I was like, oh, I guess they agreed with me. I don't know.
So they didn't do a voice test or anything?
No.
Interesting. No. That's wonderful. I actually really love it when the author can read the book. I mean, and there are times when that doesn't work. I just finished a book that a woman wrote about a male character, and so they found a male narrator, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, of course.
When the author can narrate the book, I really enjoy that. I think it's lovely because the cadence, the tone you want to set. It's just has a slightly deeper meaning.
And there's a lot of pain in the book, and it's a lot of my personal story, which was very, very painful to live through when I was, getting eaten alive by this dragon of self-doubt. And I couldn't imagine someone else inferring meaning into that. And you can hear it in my voice when I'm reading it. It's upsetting to revisit, those days. So I was very proud of it.
Yeah, no, it's great and love it. So if you're looking for the book, slaylikeamother.com will send you to the store of your choice, including the audiobook in Audible, which I really love. Audiobooks, they're just a great thing to have. I always have one on the go for whenever I'm out for a walk or whatnot. And so thank you. That's amazing. slaylikeamother.com if you're looking. I'd love to tap into your expertise in slaying dragons, but turn it a little bit for authors, because authors also have dragons. So let's start with your dragons. When you were writing the book, did you have any dragons you had to slay as you were writing your book?
Yes, many. And I thought I'd slayed them all just to be able to write the book. And then, so, I ended up going a traditional publishing route. And so a lot of the pain and struggle and self-doubt came from all the rejection. So, my book proposal for Slay Like a Mother was rejected for 4 years by 23 publishers. And I think the biggest dragon there was just for the first time in my life feeling totally out of control. So like in my company, I get to pitch the new business. I get to represent myself. And this was kind of behind closed doors and, conversations I wasn't invited into, or it was just on paper and I couldn't really sell it or represent myself. I would just get email after email saying, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
So I guess there was a lot of fear, that it would never happen. And I knew this book would have the ability to change people's lives. But if it couldn't get on a bookshelf, then that wasn't going to happen. So that was one level of, dragon that I was fighting. And then once I got the book deal, I was so excited. Like I cleared this massive, hurdle, but then I'd been paid in advance. And then I was like, well, can I write a book? But now I'm under contract and I'm given a deadline to write 75,000 words in 9 months. And then I was so caught up in the passion and the mission of saving women's souls that then the fear really set in of, can I write a book? And I certainly had been writing blog posts for years, but as you know, writing a book is very different. So yeah, for those 9 months, I was filled with a lot of fear of, can I do it? Will it be good? Will anybody buy it?
Yeah. Can I do it on time?
I would lived in so much fear that one of my children would get sick or I would get sick or something would happen in my life that would kind of, sideline me for 2 of those 9 months. I mean, it was scary.
I can feel that as a mother and trying to do things. I can absolutely feel that, here I've taken, can I take on a big project? If I do, will I be able to honor it or will I get sidelined by, here's my big list. Would you like the big list? I can give you the big list. Yeah. In part 2 of your book, you mention ways that moms feed their dragon. Were there ways as an author that you were feeding your dragon, or do you think other authors maybe feeding their dragon?
Certainly. I definitely think, catastrophizing or forecasting the worst for the future, while you're writing, thinking nobody's going to buy this. Or I would also see somewhat similar books coming out. And then I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to read, this book because there's something else somewhat like it. And which is not the way I now know that people love reading books that are similar. So that's usually a good thing and not a bad thing. But yeah, I think comparing yourselves to others, fearing the worst for the future are 2 ways that, certainly don't help getting the word out, on the page or building your confidence. So I think the key is, kind of locking yourself in the room and turning the mute button on, the outside world. And at the end of the day, you just have to do the best you can, put it on paper, and it'll live in the world forever. And you have to be okay with it, regardless of how the world responds to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's break these down just a little bit. So I'll start with this. There's a book like mine out in the world. I had an author, one of my clients came to me and said that. And I said, wonderful. And she said, what do you mean wonderful? This is terrible news. And I said, no, this is wonderful news. It means that there's a publisher who thinks this topic is so awesome that they've published a book. They've given advance to an author. They've published a book. It's in their catalog. There are 50 other publishers who want to compete with them. And you have the book that they can do that with. And she said, oh. And I said, because people who read one book on dogs or frogs or parenting or, mothering, they read 5 books they read 10 books on it. And she said, oh, it's good. And I said, yes, it's good. Read the book, figure out what you can do better. Yep. And then use that as a proposal for a traditional publisher to publish your book that it's going to compete and compare it to the book that's already published, because they can't change that anymore. Right. You can go, here's where they didn't do so well that I can do even better. And she went, oh, okay. Right. So same book. Awesome. So how did you deal with the comparisons?
Well, I actually learned it during the proposal writing phase. So, in the proposal, you have to do like a comparative titles page, which basically is saying, what is this book like? And as a classically trained marketer, my thought was, this is like nothing that anybody's ever seen before. That's how I was going to write that page. It's not this, it's not this. And then my agent was like, no, 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 it's the exact opposite approach. You want to take the best selling books that are just like your book
Yeah.
and really toot the horn of that book. And then to your point, how is it slightly different? Well, this one's going to contain more research. This one's going to have exercises written inside of it. So, it's like Brene Brown, but it has this.
But
It's
better.
like, yeah. And so that really helped me because I thought, oh, it's so counterintuitive to think that there's other successful things in the world and this is like that. And that's a good thing, where I would have thought it was a terrible thing. And he said, if you submit a proposal that says there's nothing like this that's ever been done before, no publisher is ever going to buy that book, because the best-selling ones that are like it says there's a market for this. There's people that want to buy this and they want to read about it and they want yours next. And so that kind of alleviated some of that doubt, because I was like, oh, I see how the game is played now.
Yes. Yeah. And you make such a good point, because book marketing is very different than, because we only buy one car, right? And we tend to buy the same ketchup brand every time. It's very hard for us to change ketchup brands. But books, if you like a particular genre, you're going to read all the books. And so there's, in book marketing, there's a play off of each other that brings us all up, which is so fascinating. For you, for a marketer, you must have found that, oh, that's really fascinating.
I was like, that is counterintuitive to everything I've ever been taught, but I like it. I mean, it was in my favor. So I was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to, create something that's never been done before.
Exactly. So what about catastrophizing? How would you recommend, so when you were catastrophizing, what did you do, and what would you recommend other authors do when they are catastrophizing?
I really, I started, the way I would catastrophize is like, how many books am I going to sell? As I was writing, like, who's going to read this? How many books? And it was about sales, and it was about, a number. And so one of the things I did, I'm a very tangible, like tactile, visual person. And so I ended up buying a bracelet, and it had what I probably estimated is about 50 beads on it, all different colors, really bright. And I wore it when I was writing, because I could see it on my wrist as I was typing. And in my mind, I told myself that those were 50 women, 50 different women, each bead, whose lives I was going to change, with this book. And if it was only 50 women, that's 50 women. Like, I knew how much my life had been changed by the power of what was going to be written in this book. And if I could do that for 50 women, that was enough for me. And it didn't need to be 5 million women. And I didn't need to put the pressure on myself of it needing to be 5 million women. And so I just kind of focused on the lives that I would touch as opposed to the books that I would sell.
Yes, I love that. And it leans into something I often say to clients is have a creative practice. Right? Have a ritual, have rhythms. And part of your creative practice was to wear a bracelet that represented the 50 women whose lives you wanted. And if it were only 50 women, that were fine. Although studies show us that if you change one woman's life, what happens, right? Mm-hmm. You change an entire village, right? You change every person who comes after her, her children, her grandchildren, so, the truth is, if you changed 50 women, you would have changed so much more, even 50 women, although I'm sure you've changed many more. Thank you. That's amazing. What are you working on now? What kind of projects do you have going on at the moment?
I am still working really diligently to get like a mother out there. So lots of speaking engagements. I do a lot of corporate speaking engagements inside of companies to support their working mothers. So I've done it at, Coke and Hallmark and Wells Fargo Bank. And so that's been really great to be able to, get the word out, because as any author listening to this or potential author knows, that the marketing is pretty much left up to you. Regardless of how you publish, so much of the marketing is left up to you after the book launches. So I will definitely write a second book. I have lots and lots and lots of ideas, but I'm just not willing to do that just yet, because I think this book has a lot of life left in it. And I know that it's up to me to get it out there. And like I said before, I'm changing people's lives. So it's not like it's a grind. It's deeply rewarding and fulfilling.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's a really great way for you to get the word out is and you can use your contacts in your B2B business to get the speaking gigs for the B2C book, which I think blends really well. So smart marketing. Oh, you're a marketer, so that makes perfect sense. All right. So people can get your book at slaylikeamother.com. They want to reach you for other reasons, to bring you in as a speaker or connect with you for another reason, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is probably through either LinkedIn, Catherine Wintsch, or on Instagram, and my handle is at KWintsch, WINTSCH. But yeah, would love to be able to help people slay some dragons.
Yes. And all of that will be in the description. So if you're looking to connect with Catherine, just pop down into the description. You'll have her website, her LinkedIn, and her Instagram are all there for you. Catherine, thank you so much for coming in today and speaking with me. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Have we missed anything that you want to add before we end?
No, I think you did a great job, and I'm just excited to be able to share this with authors. It's interesting, as a first-time author, I don't really interact with authors that much, and so I just love to be able to give back and share, the bumpy road that I went down to get here. So I just appreciate what you're doing.
I'm going to just make one little point, just because what you said was really interesting. I don't speak to other authors very often. That's something I noticed difference between traditionally published and self-published. Self-published authors do a lot more networking with other authors, and traditionally published, they tend to have more of a connection with their publisher than with the publishing world in general. So really interesting point. Thank you for just mentioning that. It just brings it up for me. Thank you, Catherine. Really loved having you today. Thank you for joining us today. So to our viewers, Author Nation is here to provide you with a path from idea to book. So join the community and learn what it is like to be part of a community that helps you every step of the way so you don't make those common and costly mistakes. And next week, we are bringing in Tammy Gross, and she's going to be talking about how to script your story for Hollywood. I will see you then.